How do you forgive a man who smiled at your table, but dug your grave behind your back? It was in the red-dusted outskirts of Kano City, just after the last harmattan winds had blown, that the story began. A sprawling compound near the Kofar Wambai gate bustled with children's laughter and the soft sizzle of tuwo shinkafa on charcoal fires. It was here that I, Hassan Damlardi, a 38-year-old textile merchant with a calm voice and cautious eyes, had built a modest life with my beloved wife, Zara, and our 6-year-old son, Umar. Life was not perfect, but it was peaceful, predictable. That was until Kaberu Yusuf, my old schoolmate from Zaria, arrived at my doorstep, his shirt clinging to his ribs, his eyes sunken with desperation. "I've lost everything in Abuja, wallahi," he said, lowering his voice. "I have no one left. You are all I have now, Hassan." Zara looked at me cautiously, her eyes saying what her lips wouldn't. But I, being a man raised to never turn away a brother, welcomed Kaberu in. I gave him a room, meals, and a place at the Friday prayers beside me. At first, he swept the yard, helped Zara carry water, and played with little Umar like an uncle should. I thought Allah had rewarded my kindness with a loyal companion. I couldn't have been more wrong. Kaberu's charm worked fast, perhaps too fast. My customers began to like him, calling him my Faraa, the cheerful one. I noticed how he lingered when Zara passed by, how he spoke softly to her when I was in the back room tallying cloth. I told myself not to be suspicious. Kaberu is family, I said. But deep in my gut, something began to curdle. One night, after a heavy downpour, Kaberu knocked on my door with urgency in his voice. "Hassan, let's talk," he said, drenched and shivering. "There's an opportunity for us to double your textile income. A friend is coming from Niger with silk, real silk. But we need to go meet him in the bush before Border Patrol catches him." "Tonight?" I asked. "Tonight," he nodded, lowering his voice. "Before dawn. We'll be rich, brother." I hesitated. The risk. The timing. Zara sleeping just meters away. But Kaberu's eyes glowed with purpose. "Wealth," he whispered again, "or regret." I agreed. What I didn't know was that I was walking into a trap. The road to Anguwan Rimi was half swallowed in darkness, the moon veiled behind a thick curtain of clouds. As Kaberu and I bounced along in my old Peugeot 504, the world around us seemed to fall into an eerie silence. No traders' calls, no radio music from nearby houses, only the quiet hum of insects and the occasional bark of a distant dog. Kaberu kept looking at his phone, then at the bush path ahead. I tried to stay calm, but a cold shiver crept up my spine. "Are you sure this is the place?" I asked, slowing the car down as the dirt track narrowed. "Yes. He's waiting just beyond that ridge," Kaberu replied, pointing ahead. "He doesn't want to be seen. Too risky." I parked under a neem tree, left the headlights on, and grabbed my flashlight. "So we walk from here?" Kaberu nodded, already stepping out, his slippers crunching the dry undergrowth. I followed, the air heavy with moisture and something else, dread. My instincts told me to turn back, but pride and the hope of prosperity pushed me forward. We walked 5 minutes into the bush. Then 10. No sign of the trader. No sound. Kaberu glanced back. "Just up ahead," he whispered. But suddenly, a sharp twig snapped behind us. I spun around, too late. 2 masked men burst from the shadows, wielding machetes and wooden clubs. "Allahu Akbar!" I shouted, instinctively raising my hands. "Please take anything you want." They didn't speak. One hit me hard on the back with a plank. I fell face first into the dirt. My flashlight skittered away. The other man yanked off my wristwatch and wallet. My mouth filled with blood and dust. Through blurred vision, I looked up at Kaberu, expecting him to fight or scream. But he just stood there, still, watching. One of the men turned to him, grunted something, and Kaberu nodded. That's when I knew. This wasn't a robbery. This was an execution. They beat me until my ribs cracked, then left me motionless and gasping. I remember Kaberu walking slowly toward me, crouching beside my bloodied face. He leaned in, lips close to my ear. "Don't worry, Hassan," he whispered coldly. "I'll take good care of Zara and Umar." And then he walked away. I lay there, in that silent field, body broken, tears mixing with mud, left for dead by the man I had once called brother. But I wasn't dead, not yet. Love this story? Then don't miss what happens next. If Kaberu's betrayal shocked you, wait until you see what he does when he returns to Hassan's widow. Like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next explosive chapter. And drop a comment. What would you have done if you were Hassan? Let's talk betrayal in the comments below. The sun rose slowly over Kano, its warm gold light falling across rooftops, minarets, and the courtyard of my home, a home I could no longer enter. My body was found by 2 cattle herders at dawn, barely alive, groaning in agony. My face was so swollen they thought I was a madman beaten for stealing goats. They didn't know I was Hassan Damlardi, a respected textile trader. At Murtala Muhammad Specialist Hospital, I was stabilized, but unconscious for 2 days. No ID. No phone. Just broken bones and a mangled face. By the time I opened my eyes, the city had already begun to bury me. In my absence, Kaberu told everyone I had traveled to Niger Republic for business. When Zara asked why I hadn't called, he showed her my blood-stained wallet and said I had been attacked by bandits who left no trace. He even wept in front of her. He was so convincing that my own brother in Kaduna believed him. And so, without my body, without confirmation, without truth, they buried an empty coffin in my name. The funeral was held on a Saturday morning. The muezzin's call floated over the compound like a ghost. White prayer cloths were laid out. My uncle from Sokoto led the janazah prayers. Zara stood beside my mother, her face hidden behind a long black veil, hands trembling, eyes red from grief. Little Umar clutched her dress, too young to understand death, but old enough to know that Baba wasn't coming home. And there, in front of the mourners, stood Kaberu, wearing my white Baban Riga, reading Quran verses in my voice, consoling my widow like a groom in training. "She's so young," he whispered to my aunt behind the veil. "A woman like her shouldn't be left alone for long." "She will heal," my aunt said. "I will help her heal," Kaberu replied softly. That day, the city mourned me, and the man who orchestrated my downfall was the one leading the grief. But far across town, wrapped in bandages, breathing through pain, I lay awake. And I remembered. I remembered everything. And I wasn't going to stay dead. By the 3rd week, the stitches on my face had started to tighten like fishing wire pulling my skin inward. My ribs ached with every breath, and the painkillers no longer did their job. But pain was no longer my enemy, silence was. I couldn't call home. I couldn't speak my name without risking everything. I had become a ghost in my own life, a man trapped in limbo between survival and vengeance. The doctor, Dr. Murtala, a gentle man with tribal marks and deep-set eyes, leaned toward me one evening. "You're healing faster than expected. You're lucky to be alive." I stared at him, my voice hoarse. "Doctor, do you know what it feels like to attend your own funeral?" He paused. "No, I do," I said. "And I'm not staying dead." He looked at me carefully, then asked, "What will you do?" "I'm going to see who's wearing my shoes." By the time I discharged myself under a false name, Kaberu had already moved into my home. Not as a guest this time, but as a savior. The city was buzzing with whispers. Some said Kaberu was filling the gap, that he was only trying to protect Zara and Umar from loneliness and poverty. Others claimed they had seen the two laughing too freely at a buka near Kormi market. But no one had the courage to question a man who was doing the right thing for a grieving widow. I couldn't walk openly in the daylight, so I moved like a shadow through the streets of Kano. I wore a scarf over my jaw, a cap pulled low over my brow. I stayed in a one-room lodge in Sabangari, listening, watching, waiting. Then one night, I saw it with my own eyes. Zara. In the compound. In a new abaya I never bought her. Laughing, with Kaberu, as he lifted Umar into the air like his own son. He had stepped into my shoes so smoothly, it made my blood run cold. But what hurt the most? Zara was smiling. Was it all a lie? Had she moved on? Or was she, like me, a prisoner of Kaberu's deception? I had to know. And the only way to know was to walk into that compound. Alive. The air in Kano was heavy with the scent of roasted corn and charcoal smoke as I stood across the street from the house I once called mine. The gates were painted a fresh coat of green, Kaberu's favorite color, not mine. I watched as Zara swept the front yard in slow, tired strokes, and Umar chased a plastic ball near her feet, laughing. Everything looked normal, too normal. But behind that normal was a quiet horror. My hands trembled as I walked toward the gate. My legs didn't feel like they belonged to me anymore. They were heavier than flesh, loaded with rage and betrayal. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows over the walls of the compound, just like the shadows that had taken over my life. I raised my hand and knocked. Zara answered the gate herself. The moment our eyes met, her broom dropped. She froze like a statue carved from fear and disbelief. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. Her eyes darted from my scarred face to my healing jaw, then to the deep wound across my left brow. H. Hassan, she whispered. I nodded slowly. She staggered backward, clutching her chest. Her voice broke. You're dead. We buried you. I know, I said, my voice low and hoarse. Kaberu made sure of that. Tears burst from her eyes like a dam collapsing. She dropped to her knees. Ya Allah. Hassan, we didn't know. He told me, he said bandits. I stepped closer. He lied. Zara's hands trembled as she reached out and touched my arm, as if testing to see if I was flesh or ghost. Why didn't you come sooner? I couldn't. I was broken. I watched my own funeral. I saw him comfort you. I saw you smile. She gasped. No. Hassan, I swear, I didn't know. I cried for you every night. I never smiled from joy. Only to protect Umar. Kaberu has been pressuring me, saying he wants to marry me. I refused. My heart swelled with anger and relief in equal measure. Did he hurt you? She nodded barely. Not with his hands, but with his eyes, with his presence. He's not who you thought. From inside the house, I heard a door creak open. Footsteps. Then a voice. Zara, who's at the gate? It was Kaberu, and he was walking toward us. Kaberu stopped just 3 steps from the gate, holding a polythene bag of meat from the butcher's market. He glanced between me and Zara, squinting like he was seeing a ghost. His lips curled, but no words came out at first. The man who had so easily spun lies in my absence suddenly found his tongue tied in my presence. H. Hassan, he stammered. This can't be. I stepped forward slowly, face tight, my left hand still wrapped in cloth from the hospital. Oh, it can. It is. Surprised to see the man you left for dead still breathing. The plastic bag slipped from Kaberu's hand, meat hitting the dusty floor with a splat. I saw you, I said, every word deliberate. I saw you stand there while they beat me. I saw you nod. Kaberu's face flushed, his mouth twitching. You're confused, wallahi. I tried to help you. I didn't know what was happening. Those men, they attacked both of us. I escaped and came for help. Liar! Zara's voice snapped through the silence like thunder. She stepped in between us. Don't twist this. You said Hassan was dead. You buried an empty coffin. You moved into his bed. I never touched you. Kaberu shouted, defensive now. I honored his memory. Honor, I said, laughing bitterly. You planned it. You wore my clothes. You played father to my son. You even whispered to my aunt about marrying my wife. You didn't honor me, Kaberu. You replaced me. Kaberu backed up slowly, sweat beading on his forehead. You have no proof. You think I need proof? I replied, stepping closer. I am the proof. Zara grabbed my arm. Let's go inside. Let the neighbors not gather yet. Not until we decide what to do. But from the corner of my eye, I could already see two women from across the road peeking through their curtains. A Kiki driver slowed down as he passed. Kano's streets were good at hiding secrets, but even better at spreading them. Kaberu looked around, panicked. If you think you're taking your place back that easily, Hassan, it won't end well. I leaned close enough that he could smell the dried blood still lingering on my bandages. It didn't end well for me last time. But this time, I'm ready. Kaberu stared at me, speechless. Then he turned and walked back inside the house, my house, without saying another word. The war had begun, and only one man would still be standing at the end. The compound was no longer quiet. Zara locked the gate behind us as the whispers from the street crept over the walls like rising floodwater. Inside, the living room looked the same, too much the same. My prayer mat was folded in the exact corner I always kept it. My framed wedding photo still hung on the wall, only now Kaberu stood under it like he owned the house. He paced slowly, face twitching as he tried to maintain his composure. So what's your plan, Hassan? Walk back into my house and act like nothing happened. My house, I corrected sharply. Built with my money, with my hands. You slept here on the floor when you had nothing. Now you walk its halls like a king. Kaberu turned, voice rising. I saved this family. You were gone. Gone. Zara was crying every day. Umar was sick for a week. No one else stepped up. I did. You stepped on my grave, I snapped. And now I'm back to drag you off it. Zara stood in the hallway, holding Umar close to her chest as the two of us faced off. She didn't speak, didn't blink. She had seen what she needed to see. The man she trusted had turned into something else entirely. Then Kaberu laughed, dry bitter. You want the truth? Fine. Yes. I set you up. I was tired of being the one on the sidelines. All my life, you had everything. The shop, the respect, the beautiful wife. I was always just Hassan's friend. So I changed the story. And for once, I was the man at the center. His voice cracked. And you know what? It felt good. Better than being pitted. I froze. Not because I was shocked, but because I'd been waiting to hear it from his own mouth. You just confessed, I said. You know that, right? He blinked. To who? Her. He scoffed. There's no recording. Zara pulled her phone from her wrapper. Her hands were steady. There is now. Kaberu lunged forward, but I was faster. I stepped in, slammed him against the wall, pressing my forearm to his chest. The old me would have hesitated, but the man who was left for dead was long gone. You think betrayal makes you a man? I hissed. You're not a man. You're a coward with a borrowed life. And I'm here to reclaim it. The front door burst open. It was my uncle. And two police officers. Kaberu turned pale. I've been informed, my uncle said calmly, that the dead has returned and brought the truth with him. Kaberu's mouth moved, but no sound came out. The officer stepped forward. Kaberu Yusuf, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder and fraud. Handcuffs clicked. Kaberu flinched. And for the first time, his face showed what he truly was without the mask. Not a brother, not a friend, but a traitor exposed. As they dragged him out, neighbors gathered, stunned. And I stood in the doorway of my home. Alive. Whole. But forever changed. The day after Kaberu's arrest, the compound was silent, but not peaceful. The kind of silence that clings to you like sweat, filled with things left unsaid. I sat in the living room where my voice used to echo freely, now uncertain, as if my soul no longer fit the space I once called home. Zara sat across from me, her hands folded in her lap, her head slightly bowed. Umar had been taken to her sister's house for the evening, so we could talk, just the two of us. But what do you say to the woman who thought she buried you? What do you say when your return brings more pain than relief? I still wake up at night expecting it to be a dream, Zara said, barely above a whisper. Sometimes, I wonder if I really saw your face at that gate. You did, I said. And I saw you smiling, before you knew I was alive. Her eyes welled up instantly. Please don't mistake that smile. It wasn't happiness, it was survival. I was trying to hold myself together, for Umar. For your memory. I nodded slowly, trying to quiet the storm inside me. And Kaberu? Did you ever believe him? She shook her head. I believe the pain, not the words. Deep down, I never trusted how quickly he moved into your place. But what choice did I have? The whole world thought you were gone. And I was drowning. I looked around the house, at the photographs, the embroidered throw pillows she once sewed, the prayer time sheet taped to the wall, and realized this house carried scars just like me. The past didn't just leave bruises. It repainted the walls, rewrote the rules. I'm not the same man who left this house, I said quietly. And you're not the same woman I married. Zara nodded, wiping a tear. But maybe we can learn who we've become. I looked into her eyes, searching for bitterness, blame, or fear. But there was none. Just quiet hope. And exhaustion. I don't expect us to go back, I said. But maybe we can go forward. She stood slowly, walked over, and sat beside me. Not too close, but close enough to remind me that some things weren't lost. Just waiting. Then came the knock on the door. It was my lawyer. The charges are holding. But Kaberu, he's hired counsel. And he's denying everything. Says the confession was faked. The case could drag. I nodded. Let it drag. I'll be there every day. Because survival isn't enough anymore. Now I wanted justice. And I wanted to rebuild, not just my house, but my life. The Kano High Court was packed that morning. Rows of plastic chairs filled with spectators, murmuring elders, heads-carved women clutching rosaries, and vendors whispering the tale of the man who rose from his grave. The judge's bench stood high like a throne of final judgment, and I stood beneath it, not as a ghost, but as a witness of my own attempted murder. Kaberu sat across the room, dressed in a stiff kaftan, his beard trimmed, eyes cold. He didn't look at me once. His lawyer, a smooth-talking man with gold-rimmed glasses, began the defense with flair. There is no physical evidence that my client arranged this so-called robbery. No fingerprints. No texts. No eyewitness besides the alleged victim, who, we must remember, was unconscious and in shock. This entire case rests on a voice memo recorded in private, without consent, without context. I clenched my fists. I could feel Zara's hand tighten around mine in the gallery. Then it was my turn. I stood before the judge, shoulders straight, voice calm but burning from the inside. I don't have recordings of the machetes, or the sound of my bones breaking. But I remember Kaberu's eyes. I remember how he watched and nodded. That night I died and he lived my life. I handed over a flash drive. On this, you'll hear him confess. You'll also hear my wife say she was pressured, cornered. Your Honor, the only reason I stand here today is because Allah chose to keep me alive to tell this story. And the only reason Kaberu sits there free is because I woke up too soon for him to finish the job. The courtroom fell silent. Then the judge asked, "And this coffin, the one you say was buried in your name, is there proof?" "Yes," I said. "Dig it up." 2 days later, they exhumed the grave. What they found was not a body. Just clothing, some rocks, and my ID card, planted evidence to fake my death. That was the turning point. Back in court, Kaberu broke. "I didn't mean to kill him," he shouted. "I just wanted a chance. A life." Everything came to him so easily. "You had a life," the judge said, voice firm. and you threw it away by envying another man's. The final verdict rang out like thunder. Kaberu Yusuf, you are hereby sentenced to 25 years in prison for attempted murder, fraud, and impersonation. Zara let out a slow, shaky breath. I closed my eyes. It was over. Or so I thought, because as the gavel fell, I turned and saw Kaberu's mother in the back of the room. Her face was dry, but her eyes held a hatred that burned deeper than anything I'd seen in her son. She mouthed something in Hausa I could barely hear. This is not the end. 3 days after the verdict, peace returned, but it didn't stay. I walked freely again through the cloth stalls of Canton Quarry Market, greeted by familiar voices, some cheering me like a legend risen from ash. Others stared with guarded eyes, whispering behind cola-stained fingers. I had won in court. Kaberu was locked away, but my spirit was still haunted. Zara tried her best to rebuild what we lost. She cooked with more care now. Her eyes no longer wept at night, though they never fully smiled either. Umar clung to me like a shadow, sometimes waking in the night screaming, "Uncle Kaberu is in the house." I'd hold him, whispering, "He's gone, my son. He's not coming back." But evil doesn't always leave when the door is shut. Sometimes it returns through the window. It was on a Friday morning, 2 weeks after the sentencing, that the flames came. I had gone to the mosque for Jumu'ah prayers. When I returned, neighbors were screaming, water buckets flying, smoke rising high above my roof. My compound was burning. Zara was safe. She'd taken Umar to her aunt's for Quran recitation that morning. But everything else was reduced to soot. The furniture, the framed photos, the prayer mats, even the mattress I shared with Zara when we were newlyweds. Gone. Scorched on the gate, in black paint, were 4 words in Hausa. Kashi by Kerbier. The revenge is not over. The police said it was arson. The neighbors had seen a veiled woman lurking by the compound earlier that morning, Kaberu's mother. But they had no evidence. No arrests. Just smoke and silence. That night, Zara sat beside me in the temporary shelter behind my cousin's house. "Why do they still want to hurt us?" she asked. "Because they lost," I said. "And some people would rather burn the house down than live without the keys." She touched my hand. "Are you tired, Hassan?" I nodded slowly. Tired, but not finished. We didn't rebuild in that house again. Instead, we moved to a quieter area near Badawa, started fresh. My shop reopened. Zara began teaching Quran to girls in the local school. Umar laughed again. The past never fully left us, but we refused to live in its shadow. As for Kaberu, the last I heard, he was silenced in prison after trying to manipulate another man's wife. His mother vanished from Kano. No one knows where she went. But some nights, when the wind howls through the trees, I still hear her whisper, "This is not the end." Maybe it isn't. But now I'm ready. And I fear no grave, because I've already come back from one. The end. Or is it? If this story moved you, shocked you, or made your heart pound, show it some love. Like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you don't miss more stories of betrayal, survival, and justice. Comment below. What was your favorite moment? And should we continue this story with a spin-off?